Let's get it.
All right, cool. So, yeah, good evening, guys. Welcome to our first class. We're going to be discussing basic charting and how to find support and resistance levels and how to make decisions based off of those levels, right? So, every stock has price action, and all price action tends to find levels that they don't want to go below and levels that they don't want to go above, right? So we define these areas of that support and resistance, right? So if you guys check these ovals on the screen, right, these are levels of support, right? I circle them in green. We call it support because every time the stock tends to get to that level, it doesn't really want to stay. It doesn't want to stay there, or it doesn't want to go below it, right? So do you see how it bounces off that level and it goes back up right here? Same thing happened here, right there, and up there, right? The 74.45 level, we can define that as an area of support because the stock didn't want to go below that price. Every time the price touched that area, buyers bought it back up, right? So I think it's pretty simple. And resistance is the opposite. An area that stock doesn't want to pass, right? There's always going to be an area where sellers take over, right? And whenever there's more sellers than buyers, the price is going to head in a downtrend, right? So buyers and sellers are always in a fight, right? It's always people trying to get things filled with the bid and the ask price. But at some point, sellers are going to take over when price action is moving upwards, right? So, the more quickly price goes up, we call this momentum, right? And at some point, this is where the sellers start to take over, right? But the buyers are still pouring in. And at some point, there's going to be weakness in the momentum, right? So our momentum is going to slow down around here. And this is kind of the phase where once sellers step in and crush the buyers, this is kind of like the crush phase. And then this is where the price action actually heads down until it finds support back at our previous level of 74.45, right? A more advanced term for this could be accumulation distribution, but I'm not going to go too much into that right now. We're going to keep it basic tonight. So how do we make decisions as traders of when to enter a trade or when to get out of a trade, right? Well, very simply put, once a stock tends to meet its support zone, that's generally a good time to buy the stock, right? And a great time to exit is when you hit resistance. So if you had defined these support and resistance levels just from this box right here, right? Because we can't see the future, but let's say we're just trading in that green box and, we're just trading and we saw the stock, broke out of this area, right? And we're just watching at this point, right? Nothing's really happened yet. We see it bounce off this level. So immediately we can call this like a temporary resistance, this little circle right here, but we don't know it yet, right? And then we come back down here, then we bounce off that level again, right? At that point, we can draw a line, we can draw a trend line, and we can say, this is resistance, definitely, right? At least temporarily, it's resistance. So with that information, now we can trade. We're not going to enter a trade yet. Sorry, let me put the rectangle back, right? We're not going to enter the trade yet. We're just going to keep in our heads that this line right here is resistance, right? Now, when it breaks out, obviously we saw how quickly it flew once it broke out of that area, but then it actually failed this line up here and it came back down, right? So at this point now, right, at this point in time where I drew that red circle just there, I'm looking for the stock price action to go back up and test this line again, because that would further confirm this line as resistance, right? But it didn't quite make it there. It actually ended up in a downward trend as shown in that price channel, and it found its way right back to that area, right? So now, at this point in time, we can now define this top line as resistance and this bottom line as support, definitely, right? So we can get these two lines just from trading in that rectangle. Hope you guys can see that, right? We gathered all that information just from looking at the price action from here all the way to there, right? Now, at this point now as traders, we've identified a trend and we've identified a range. So what do we do with that information? Now we can start to make decisions on our trade, right? We had a downward price channel right here. So the first thing I'm going to look for is for the stock price to try and bounce off the support level here and hopefully test this line again, which it did, right? So if you had drawn a downward price channel, which is very clear to see right here, then you could have started entering this trade on confirmation of a breakout around here, right? This is kind of hard to see. There's a bit of a bull flag right there. If you guys had seen that, you could have waited for it to break, and your confirmation candle is right around here, right? That's confirmation. And you guys could have ridden the stock all the way up to that resistance line, which we had previously defined from here, right? And had you just traded the levels that you set for yourself based on the data that we received from that rectangle I drew prior, you would have exited this trade as we approach this level. And guys, as traders, you don't want to wait for the price to hit exactly this level because you actually might chop around there. You want to start selling when you approach that level, right? So if you're in a long position or you're in a bullish position, meaning you want the price to go up, you want to start trimming your contract or start trimming some of your shares as you get close to that resistance line, right? And, if you made a good profit, you can leave 1 or 2 contracts if you're trading options, because there is always a chance you can break out of this line and go back and test this level, right? But this level up here, we have a very low chance of hitting it because we only tested it once and it got rejected hard, which is an even clearer indication that the stock wants to stay in this range right here, right? So I'm going to go over that again. If you have your price channel drawn out here and you bounce off a support level, which was defined from here and here, you could have traded this breakout, gotten it around here. And as you approach your resistance level, then you can get out of the trade somewhere around here, hopefully, right? That's when I start exiting the trade. If you're holding options contracts, a $5 move in an $80 stock, that's almost 7%, 7-8%. That can net you thousands of dollars in profit with multiple contracts, right? So don't underestimate the power of just playing in a range. And of course, as the stock bounced off this level again, you have even further confirmation that 86.71 is heavy resistance, right? And even if it breaks out of this level in the future, even if we come out of the zone again, right? I have a lot of confidence that 86.71 is going to be a very important line in this stock, or sorry, AMD. I don't even know we're looking at AMD, but it's going to be a very important line in AMD for the rest of time, right? If they have very bad news and we have market crash, if a stock even goes to 200 and the market crashes, I guarantee you 86.71 is going to be a line that we're looking at again, right? Same thing with 74.45, right? So don't underestimate these ranges, guys. I do expect AMD to actually start selling off as we approach the resistance zone, which would just further confirm 86.71 as a very, very heavy resistance. We'll see what happens, right? It's been playing in this range since July, I'd say early August, so let's say July 27th, right? We've been playing in that range for a long time. And earnings was not enough to have it break out. So it's going to need another catalyst. The only catalyst I see for AMD personally is going to be more of those PlayStations using their chips or more computers. I don't know too much about AMD, but I do know they will benefit from their chips, obviously. But that's all fundamental. If we're just talking about support and resistance zones, if we do have good news and we break out of that 86.71 zone, then the next line I'm going to watch is not going to be necessarily up here. I'm going to wait for this line over here. Why? Because I can't count on a stock going straight to that previous resistance zone when it got rejected so heavily, right? So you can't just see a stock bounce off a level and immediately assume it's going to be resistance, right? I'm going to wait a bit lower, right? This 91.77 line is good. I would even go even a tiny bit lower because that's where we started seeing the top, right? This is where the bullish momentum really, really died out, right? That area. So anywhere in this little box right here, that's where I'm going to start selling, right? So if we break out of 86.71 with volume and we can even clear this last candle, and clear like the top of these candles, then my next target is going to be 90.50. So when I post my watch list, this is my target. When Casa posts or any of the analysts post their targets, maybe 95% of the time, they're just using these ranges and price channels, right? To find breakouts and find exit points. This is how we pick our targets. It's nothing too complicated, right? Is everyone following so far? I know I've been talking a lot. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat, or you can turn on your mic and just say you understand. Is there anything you want clarification for before we hit our next topic? You understand? All right, good stuff.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it? Awesome. So we're looking at the 4-hour time frame. Nothing is mostly used for anything. All time frames are used for different styles of trading. Some traders have more success on longer time frames because most investors invest long term, right? We are options traders, so we look at longer time frames usually just to find significant levels. But as you guys can see, once we zoom in, we actually spend a lot more time in those little ovals than you might expect, right? And remember, everything, all of these levels have these sub levels embedded within them, right? So in those ovals we drew, we actually do have many lines of support and resistance, right? During the day, right? So it's not like the lines we drew before are the only lines to watch, right? We have to pick our targets in smaller time frames to find more levels, and that way we don't miss out on trades. Especially trading options contracts, we can't afford to get caught in a red candle like that, right? We can't afford to get caught in a dip like that, right? Even investing long-term options contracts, they'll lose value very quickly just based on that little correction right there. So just something to watch out for. All right, if you want to go back to where we were, we can get back to my next topic, right? So if you guys recall, I was talking about how we, if we had broken out of this line in this AMD trade that we were hypothetically doing, right? The next line I'd be watching is ultimately that 94.28 line because that is all-time highs. But I did say that once we do get in this little area where we had our momentum slow down, right? I did say that's when we want to start looking to exit the trade, right? As we approach the bottom of this box, that's when we want to start getting rid of our trade, right? So now I'm going to introduce you guys to the topic of supply and demand zones, right? So supply and demand zones are very simple. Supply zones are just areas of resistance, and demand zones are areas of support, right? So let me give an example, right? These ovals right here, these all highlight demand zones, right? They're not necessarily levels, right? It's a range of levels that the stock tends to spend the most time in, right? So if you guys are looking here, I've just drawn 3 demand zones, right? So you guys on your chart, you could theoretically just draw a big rectangle and just name it demand zone. And this is an area of support, right? And I wouldn't say this is as significant for full-time options traders, but if you guys are trading equity, this rectangle is generally where you always want to buy the stock because it has shown us for the last 3.5 months that this is a level where buyers want to step in, right? This level right here, buyers always want to get in the stock, and you can see how aggressively the stock gets bought up every single time we hit the zone, right? There, right here, even here, right there, and right there, right? So as you enter a demand zone, it's time to get more bullish on the stock, and that's how we can start to predict reversals, right? Again, this is all easier when you're looking in the past, and it's all hindsight, but I guarantee this works all the time, right? And once you guys place your first trade using supply and demand zones and you actually see your support and resistance lines work out, you're going to gain a lot more confidence in your trades, and you guys can actually form your own plays this way, right? And the same thing goes for supply zones, right? I'm not necessarily looking for what a stock bounces off of. I'm looking for areas where a stock tends to fall out quickly, right? So do you see how aggressive that sell-off was right here? Right, sorry. My eraser went off, right? See how aggressive the price fell out there, right? So anywhere in this little box, this rectangle in the Costa, we tend to have aggressive selling off, right? And the stock doesn't really want to stay in that range, right? And then I was mentioning this area up here before, right? Because the next time AMD tests this level and falls out of this range, I can now call this a new supply zone, right? And this area right here will now become a new demand zone. And this zone will just be data to keep in the future in case we do find ourselves once again playing back in this range, right? Does that make sense, guys? I don't want to go too fast.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, sounds good. All right, so now as traders, we have to make a decision. What do we do next, right? We're at this point right here, at this point in time. We don't know what's coming next, right? AMD could go all the way down here. We don't know, right? So how do we make an educated decision on what to do next, right? We are in somewhat of a bull market. I don't really know why, but we are in a bull market right now. But we also are nearing the top of, or in the middle of our supply zone that we've previously charted, right? So, you know, more likely than not, we are going to bounce around this level, and we're probably going to fall down and retest 74.45, right? Or we could just bounce on other levels that we find, right? I'm sure you guys can find like other micro lines in between this range. It's kind of hard to see right now since I'm on Zoom, but there could be a line there. I mean, if you guys zoom into smaller time frames, you guys will be able to find lines along this green dotted line a lot more easily. But, you know, even though the stock is in an uptrend right now and we are in a bull market, just fundamentally, there aren't that many catalysts for a chip company to be running right now, right? We can also look at how this is a little overbought. And you guys don't need indicators to see this, right? Like, do you see how the stock ran up here, that little channel? That's healthy price action, right? Because we have a good amount of green and red candles and it's moving like most stocks do, right? Up here, this is not healthy, right? The reason I say it's not healthy, because we have a huge gap right there, right? That's a gap that needs to be filled. It's also, you know, it just went from 74 straight to 87, right? This is almost almost a 10% move in just a couple days, right? So that's unhealthy. And for that reason alone, that actually gives me more reason to believe that we're going to bounce down, right? Now, had we reached this this resistance level of 86.71 and the stock was going up similar to this, then I would actually be looking for a potential breakout, and we would be looking for a breakout straight to our new supply zone, right? But just given the fact that the stock is a little overbought, I think that we're going to be gapping down. So you guys always want to look at the bigger picture, right? So during the day, you can see that AMD is going up, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up, right? And you might want to buy into it. And you guys might be able to scalp it from 85 to 86, but is it really worth it? I don't know. Because the chances that you get dumped on in a red candle like that is so much greater. These red candles, it's so much greater than trying to trade a breakout, right? Stocks like to break out when they have healthy price action going up, right? This is a rocket, right? And there's no reason for it to be a rocket, right? Earnings was here. There's no more announcements. They had an event around here, and that's it, right? There is no more reason for the stock to be flying, right? So for that reason alone, I do think we're going to bounce off that 86.71 level, and we're going to see some more price action in a range. So that's pretty much it for the basics of supply and demand zones with support and resistance, right? Someone asked me the difference between supply and demand and support and resistance. There is no difference. It's just that support and resistance are lines typically, and supply and demand are zones, right? They're areas, right? So it's a lot more ambiguous, right? As you enter a supply zone, so as you enter the bottom of supply zone, you want to start looking to sell your position. It doesn't necessarily mean to go short, but you want to just, start trimming your position, your long position, right? And as you approach the top of your prior demand zone, you want to start possibly exiting any short positions, right? Because like I said, supply and demand zones tend to have very aggressive reversals, as you guys can see here, right? And if you guys aren't seeing these aggressive reversals when you chart, you might want to reconsider what you are calling a supply and demand zone, right? Because they all work the same way. So just some advice for you guys. The only way to truly learn this is to pull up a chart these, ask about it, ask all of us. I'd much rather get messages from people about charts you've actually made. It's a lot more fulfilling to answer questions when you send me a picture of a chart rather than just asking me, is the stock going to go up tomorrow, right? I don't know. You have to chart it out. You guys have to do your own due diligence, right? We can't do everything for you. We can only teach.
It's all about probability too. You're saying.
Yeah. Exactly. Another rule, I guess I didn't mention before, is old resistance typically becomes new support, meaning that if you do break out, if we do break out of this line and we play in this range, then I'm going to consider 8671 to be support, right? And of course, old support becomes new resistance, right? So if we do fall below this zone for any reason with volume, then that's going to be the next line of support I'm watching, and I'll expect the stock to play in this range. All right. So
yeah, good examples right here. This was resistance. It broke it. It became support, like this level right here.
Yep, exactly. Right. See how I got rejected right there? And then a huge breakout, right? These big candles, always pay attention to them, right? Because then that means the level that they broke out from is going to become an area of support. That's a good point. All right, you guys have any questions? I think that's pretty simple. It's always good to practice.
Yeah, I would recommend just pull up a chart and then just go through and just mark these things that we just went over, and that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Like just pick any charts that like you want to look at.
You guys can talk if you want. It's not really
Yeah.
not restrictive. Yeah. It's just super interactive. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. What the hell?
My bad. No, that was good, man. I definitely understood what you was explaining.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just having a hard time actually charting it, figuring out the time frames and stuff like that.
All right. What we can do, you can pick a stock right now, and we can just walk you through it, or if you want to kind of walk us through how you're
I'm going to send you a chart right now. PayPal, I tried playing with a little bit.
I have PayPal pulled up. That's funny.
That's crazy. Yeah, what a coincidence. All right. So what lines are you watching on PayPal? I mean, I think it's better if we do it live, just so just so we can show everybody.
Yeah, I just posted it in the options chat. I'm thinking it's going up from what I was looking at.
It's going up. All right. So I see you have a line at 217 or 218. You have an ascending wedge, a bit of a bull flag, kind of. All right. And that's a 1 hour. It looks like the hourly candles. All right. Let's chart it right now. Let's try PayPal. Let's see what's going on with that. All right. So right off the bat,
what time frame is that you're on right there?
180 day, 4 hours.
I can't get my shit to look like that on.
Okay, so you go to time frame setup right here.
Yeah, I got 180. I got 184 hour. Man, all right.
Yours probably look like this on Thinkorswim.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you go to equities, you turn off the extended hours highlight, you apply, and then the extended hours are still there, but I just don't want to look at the gray bars.
Okay.
Yeah, you can we can go over that like privately if you need.
Yeah.
Settings, yeah. Just to keep the class going. So if we're looking at PayPal right now, we clearly have areas where it's bouncing off of, right? So, without looking at anything else right now, let's say PayPal shoots up to here tomorrow, I'm gonna start selling. I'll grab puts, and if it goes to here, I'm probably gonna grab calls, right? Again, we have a very, very clear, what do you call it? Very clear demand zone. Oh, sorry, I messed that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's a clear demand zone, right? I call it a demand zone because this is, look how aggressively PayPal was bought up right here, right? Aggressive price action. Every time we hit there, it just got it shot up, right? And conversely, we can call this top, it's a bit of a big supply zone, but we can kind of call that a supply zone because that is where the price started selling off, right? It dropped out pretty quickly once we hit those levels, right? So PayPal is here, and we're actually finding resistance at this 205 level once again. So what I'm looking for now, you know, similar to AMD, this kind of shot up a lot right here at the end. So I do expect a bit of a bounce off this level. You know, I would say if we pass this 204 level or 205 level, I wouldn't try to get in for calls until we can clear about 212 level, right? So when I say on charting, guys, like every night we chart, and I say that the stock needs to hold this level to remain bullish on the next day. Here's what I mean by that, right? Whenever we have a stock that gaps up like this, right? We can generally consider it overbought, right? So what I want to see it first clear resistance, right? And I just said 5 minutes ago that old resistance becomes new support, right? So if we can clear resistance and we can find a bottom like right there on that level, or even chopping around here, then I'll say, all right, we're gonna go in for calls, because that means that we're much more likely to go test this 212.5 level, and then ultimately all-time highs at 215.8, right? But I wouldn't get in just yet, because right now a stock being overbought is a sign to sell, right? And we have no confirmation of finding support at that 205 level. So until we can get at this level and hold in a range, I'm not going to be bullish on PayPal, right? As a matter of fact, I'm pretty bearish on PayPal, because the second we cross that line, we're likely going straight back to 192 long term, right? Again, as options traders, we're not really looking at 4-hour time frames outside of just finding these important levels, right? So it's always good to look at different time frames, because even though we trade short-term options and equity, right, we need to pull up bigger time frames to find these levels. Because if you're trading on a 15-minute chart or a 5-minute chart, yes, you can find those intraday levels and you can be good for the day. But if you just suddenly get caught in a big red candle and it didn't match your analysis, you don't know why, it's probably because you didn't go check out a bigger time frame, right? So if you're trading intraday, and then let's just say randomly that you're trading and PayPal opens at 204, right? And the previous day you had support at like 202, right? And PayPal likes to move a couple dollars a day, right? So all of a sudden you get in at 202 and you buy like a 210 strike call option, right? And you see it going up and up and up, and then all of a sudden you hit 204. And you're like, okay, cool, I've made some money, and it's gonna keep on going. It goes to 205, and then all of a sudden, boom, it goes back down to 202. And you've lost your entire premium and you don't know why, right? Well, if you had actually gone on a bigger time frame and found that level, you would have there'd be a much smaller chance of that happening to you, right? So you always want to check out other time frames to find these levels. You don't want to get caught, right? Always look at the bigger picture, guys. The bigger picture is always going to win. Look at the overall trend right now, right? PayPal is not trending upwards right now, really, right? This is an uptrend, and this is sideways action, right? It's sideways action. So again, pull up that accumulation distribution chart I was talking about. I will send that chart in the mentorship channel, but this is kind of a distribution phase, right? For those of you who understand what I'm talking about, you know, in the bigger picture, PayPal could be coming back down. We're not in a clear uptrend anymore. We do have these sub uptrends and downtrends here, right? If you guys are watching, let me just change the color so you guys can clearly see it, right? That is an uptrend, uptrend, downtrend, uptrend, and downtrend, right? But in the bigger picture, right, PayPal is not growing as quickly anymore, right? So just looking at the bigger picture can give you all this data, right? It can give you something to think about, right? And you can then make decisions on how bullish do you want to go on your contract, right? Long term. If you want to buy a long-term PayPal option, it's a great company. It's in Bitcoin. It's great, right? But if you're in this phase, then I might be purchasing maybe 20 contracts, right? But if I'm in this phase, I'm only going to be purchasing maybe 10 or even 5 contracts, right? Because this can start to reverse at any moment and head on a downtrend. I can't say for sure yet, but just be aware of it, right? Everything moves in waves. So you guys don't want to get caught. Look at multiple time frames, trust your levels, and don't be greedy, right?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that's more than enough info about support and resistance. Oh, futures are open.
I'll take a
Yeah,
look at
check
that.
futures for a second. Let's see.
I think it gapped up.
Holy, oh my God.
What the freak?
Wow. Wow. All right. So speaking of that, I guess we can just tie in some of our charting for SPY. I'm actually not going to be on charting tonight, personally, but let's look at SPY real quick. It's going to be important for tomorrow.
SPY's gonna open here.
Probably. All right. So right now, SPY is at 353.4 according to futures, which is actually in line with resistance from this over right here. Right. So if we can clear that, we're very well looking for a run to 358.75, which is all-time highs for SPY. But using the info I just told you guys, we're not going to be holding there. We're going to be getting out right around there. All right, so whatever line is right at the bottom of that rectangle, that's where we're going to start, right? So everyone else is going to be waiting for 355 on SPY or even 359. We're going to be getting out early, right? If we grab calls, we'll be getting out early. If SPY opens above 354, then honestly, we can look for a run to 359. I would say get out at 358, right? The last time we hit this, we sold off very aggressively, right? SPY dropped like $10. So, we could form a double top right there. But we got to see. We'll see what happens. Because SPY gapping up above 353 actually breaks our ascending wedge. So that could also be very important. I want to find support on 351, definitely. I have to find support there to remain bullish on SPY. It's very possible we test all-time highs this week, but as we approach all-time highs, we're going to be more and more careful because a reversal can happen at any time. So just be very careful. Don't get caught. If you get caught in a candle like this, you can blow your entire account. So I've seen it happen, I blew a lot of money playing Apple contracts for the Apple event on that red candle. I got blown out. I kept averaging down, and that's what happened to me, right? So we don't want to get caught there. You got to be very vigilant. You got to stay careful. Stay in our ranges, right? Again, if SPY does gap up above 353 and stay there, we're going to have our support line at 351, and we'll see where to go from there. But right now, futures are bullish. It's only been 40 minutes. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it shapes up. Keep in mind, Biden is speaking about a coronavirus plan tomorrow. That is likely to include lockdown data. So we'll watch out for stocks like Apron, Blue Apron. We're looking at Zoom, looking at DocuSign. All those stocks are going to make a comeback. Cloud computing might make a bit of a comeback. We'll see. We all blew our accounts in Apple, I guess. Yeah. Yep. So just be very careful, guys. Hope you guys understood that lesson. Next time we'll go over some more advanced things. We'll go over indicators. We'll go over how to pick contracts, how to know what's going to run, how to find 100% plays, how to draw the setups, how to time entries and exits on a much more advanced level. We'll go over many more things, but that's it for class. If you guys learned something, please leave us a testimonial. Helps out a lot. I personally can't make it for charting, but I hope you guys make some money tomorrow. I'll see you pre-market. Have a great night.
I'll see you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.